Hello, my name is Rich Howard, owner of Architectural Builders Supply. In this video is to bring you a closer look at the HPC. This is their part number CF68. This is a code card for Mazda and Ford 10 cut. Okay, that would make sense because we've got 10 spaces here. Now, if you're familiar with code cards from HPC, you might only be really interested in everything that's down here. Just where to set the spacing, where to set the depth. Okay, and me too. I'm really not. I'm ignoring everything up here generally. However, there are times when the information up here is. They had empty space on this card, and they said, let's fill it with all the good stuff. So what's the good stuff? Well, first of all, the good stuff is the depth and spacing chart. So what the depth and spacing chart tells you is literally, and it's also referred to right here, if you needed to take a key blank and in theory cut it by hand with a file, you could if you had a caliper and the depth and spacing chart. So it's important to have that information, really not to generate a key because the card is already doing that for you. But if someone walked in with the key and said duplicate this, well, you could put your caliper on there. You could then decode the cuts on the key if you had the depth and spacing chart. So that's a really handy piece of information to put here. What else is on this card? Well, they're telling you in the Blitz machine to use jaw A, that you're going to need a shim. We'll get to that in a moment. And the cutter to use is the CW1011. So the CW1011 is in their catalog of available cutters. As you know, probably, the angle of cut and what that tip does on the bottom of the cutter, it must be correct, or you can count on the key. If you're originating the key on this machine, it's not going to work if you've got the wrong cutter. That angle is really important. And then what the pin does at the very base of the pin, because if you know, not to get off the topic here, but you may know how Medico, the bottom of a Medico pin doesn't touch the bottom of the key ever, doesn't at all. In fact, the side of the pins are what are resting on the side of the cut. In other, I think all other manufacturers don't operate that way, where the pin actually hits the root of the key. You can understand how and why that would be important to have the cutter in there that's correct, so that it's cutting you the right angle and the right profile, basically. That shim is important because when you get down here, you have to be able to fixture your key blank in jaw A, and you're going to need a shim when you're using these key blanks, these Ilco-looking key blanks. X188, X201 certainly are. The series I'm going to be less comfortable with. That might be a reference to a code book, is what it very likely is. DSD 253, your depth and spacing chart number 253. We'll get to that in a moment. Notes: cuts on both sides of the key are the same. Originate one side, then duplicate it on the other. There's no reason to originate both sides. And in fact, you would not want to do that because, I'm imagining we're dealing with a wafer lock. And that cut has to be the same on both sides of the key so that the key can operate in your wafers in either this way or this way. And those cuts have to be the same on either side so that the key can go in either way. It'd be called, it's not convenience. A convenience key is a different term, but it's purposefully cut so that it will go in either way. And that's why those cuts have to be the same on both sides. And as you are originating a key on both sides, you're going to be off a micro amount. If you put your caliper on there, the cut, if you originated that cut on two different keys, you're going to be plus or minus a little bit every single time. So that's why they want you to basically just duplicate at that point. Then the next note is about the shim that's there. Shim under blank figure 1. This is your code number, CF68. Mazda Ford 10 cut. Now, let's switch to the screen view where we can take a look at some additional information. So here is the card that we're looking at, and there's not a tremendous amount of information here, but the link to the manufacturer's page here will certainly reveal some good information. And what I mean in particular is the depth and spacing charts by number and by manufacturer. So if you remember, that was a number 253. So if we pull up the DSD listing, do a find function for 253, there are 25 instances of 253 that show up, and they're mostly dimensional properties of the cut or the space of a key. But as we scroll through, we are going to find the 253. It's also numerical, so 247, 248. We could have just scrolled to 253. This is the depth and spacing chart, and that is everything that's on the head of the key. That is on the code card. The point is we've got 201 pages of depth and spacing charts published from the manufacturer, freely available. Here's the link to the website. Let's click on that. Let's click on key machines. Let's go to code cards. Now on this page, they're going to list a lot of code cards. So you can CF68. You'll find it. But you're also going to find that link to the depth and spacing charts by number and by manufacturer. Okay, so very handy link there as well. And HPC does a great job at disseminating, providing knowledge to questions. They support their product line. They're responsive. So on this link to the manufacturer's page, you'll be able to find not only all of the HPC products that we sell, but again, that link to the manufacturer's website. They're linked to their full product catalog. And if you know the name HPC, you probably do because of their Blitz machine, their code originating machine that I would think that every locksmith company owns one of these. I do. I've been using one for 30 years, and it is a tool like all other locksmithing tools. It is best suited for one particular sort of job that you would like to do. And what I mean by that is you're going to use a Blitz machine to originate a key, but you're not going to use it to duplicate, obviously. Origination, sort of operations only. I've had to duplicate keys on this, and it's just a hassle in the sense that it just takes time. I've got 5 keys to cut, and somebody's on the duplicating machine, and you know what? The client's at the counter, so I'll just originate keys, but it's not really what you want to do. However, that punch machine is another popular tool, the 1200 punch machine. Also takes a card. They're back to the depth and spacing chart. If you wanted to cut Mazda 10 cut, you could use the PF68. That's the card for the punch machine, along with this punch that would go in the punch machine, the die set basically. But the reason I point you to this catalog is not to show you about key machines that you may already be aware of, but to show you near the end of the catalog the security hardware that they get into. Obviously tools for the locksmithing trade, that's what HPC does, but they also supply items that the locksmith uses their stock in trade. Obviously key cabinets for their clients. Controlling the key blank itself is the first and greatest line of defense to maintaining the integrity of your keying system. Key tags of a variety of different types. These are boxes that you can install on a automobile, trucks really, that you will be able to put stuff inside of, and it is key controlled as well. The key vault, we've got a client who buys these a few dozen at a time. Latch guards are going to be back here as well. These offset latch guards are nice. There are 4 different sizes. Then, of course, their Scotsman door guard. That is one heck of a piece of equipment for protecting the very vulnerable part of the cylinder. Okay, has this. It's not a curtain, but it is a barrier to being able to manipulate the key blank, etc. Keeping a wrench off of it as well. And that's through bolted naturally through the door. Okay, so if you're not aware of those items as well from HPC, please do take a look at that. Back to the manufacturer's page, other documents are here, encyclopedic documents. I see that we have an HPC catalog from 1975 there. I do engage in the hobby of archiving these really old catalogs when I come across them. So if you wanted to see what HPC was offering in 1975, there is your catalog for that. Okay, and then reference documents would be here. Let's wrap up this video on camera. Finally, I'm partial to HPC. You know, I've owned, like I said, I've owned a Blitz. I think you don't need to own one. You know, I also own a Framin key that I can originate with. But a lot more people, I think, I'm not sure of this, but I think a lot more people own a Blitz machine. And with the premise of the Framin is that you are dealing exclusively with depth and spacing charts. That's a different conversation than teaching someone to use a Blitz machine by lining up the needle to a mark on the code card. I think that the knowledge of how to use a Blitz, the underlaying logic behind it is crucial to know in terms of being a locksmith. And that is basically what's happening here. So they've taken it and made it quite elegant. But I'm not aware of a lock shop that a locksmith or anyone I've ever spoken to that does work in the locksmithing world not owning one, not owning likely several, and likely, you know, having owned several over their career. So it's a ubiquitous machine, albeit an expensive machine. Still, locksmithing equipment is expensive, and you're using tools that are best suited for a particular job. You know, you can use a hammer to change spark plugs, but it's not the right tool to use. And the Blitz machine comes in handy. I find that HPC does a very good job at supporting. Asking them questions, they reply. I have asked them countless questions over my career. They've replied 100% of the time. That's important because they've got a lot of knowledge that you otherwise aren't going to be able to come into easy exposure to. So they do a great job at supporting their product line with that technical support, and I thank them for that. If you have any questions on the HPC CF68 card or any other HPC product, please feel free to reach out to us. And thank you.